Welcome to the Raven Nole Show. I'm your host, Raven C. Nole, known as the Soul Physician. I'm a wife, mother, counselor, mindset plus life coach, and speaker. And this is my first episode, y'all. I'm so excited about being before you today. Thank you so much for tuning in and following along. This really brings me so much joy because I've been wanting to do this for so long now, and I'm just now being able to do that. I have a toddler, and so my time can be shared in so many different places at once. And so just to be able to start this podcast is so exciting for me. I really want to be able to showcase who I am as a person outside of the work that I do and the skill set that I have. And so this is just what that is. And so I'm really excited about it. If you could just go ahead and do me a favor really quickly and just subscribe if you haven't already. If you're a faithful follower of mine, if you're like, I really loved what the show is going to be about, the highlights in the description, all that good stuff, go ahead and follow and subscribe me if you haven't already. So I plan on giving you a lot of juicy content on this podcast. I'm going to give you the raw and the real. I'm coming to you from the angle of my own life experience, but also my skill set and expertise. So you're going to get a mixture of things on this podcast. It's not just going to be about what I do professionally, but it's going to be about my personal life as well. It's going to be about things that I'm learning, things, how I'm growing. I want to be able to take a journey and a ride with you. So get ready, buckle up. You don't want to miss what's to come. All right, so today's episode is really going to be about getting to know me. I know that I may have some listeners that are used to who I am, that are very familiar with me, and then I might also have some new listeners that are not familiar with me or what I do professionally or anything that's on social media about me. And so I want to be able to give a full introduction to who I am so that no matter how you know about me, however you're viewing this podcast or listening to this podcast, you're able to know who Raven is. So that is what this episode is going to be about. Who is Raven? What is she about? What is she doing? Why does she do the work that she does? All that good stuff. I'm hoping to give you that backdrop story. So I'm going to break down this episode, or this, I guess you would say, title, Life of a Self-Sabotager turned Self-Improvement Specialist, into 3 episodes. So this is going to be a 3-part series within season 1. So I'm going to give you small, bite-sized, short episodes to showcase who I am, to detail out to you who I am. And it's just for the basis of you learning about me. So this is episode 1, where I'm going to give you the raw and real, hoping that my life and my gifts that God has placed inside of me motivates, inspires, and challenges you to grow, level up, and purposely pursue personal development so you can thrive in your true potential. That's the purpose and the reason behind my podcast. I want you to thrive. I want to inspire you. I want to motivate you. And I also want to challenge you so that you can fulfill your true potential in whatever way that looks like for you. If that's professionally, if that's socially, if that's personally in your personal life, whatever that looks like for you, I want to be able to motivate and inspire you to do so. But I also cannot remove the challenge, because challenge allows us to grow. So who am I? Who is Raven C. Nole? Well, you already may know a little bit about me from the intro, and maybe you're, like I said, a faithful follower of me on social media. You may even know me from my glory days, right? The beginning when it all started, the wholeness pursuit, which is how I got started in the online space back in 2016. So however you know me, I'm glad that you're here. And I'm glad that you're listening and tuning in. But just to give you a little bit more information about who I am, more on a personal side, I'm an ambivert. So I lean more to the introverted side, but I definitely can go in between depending on the environment. So I would say that I'm an ambivert, but strongly introverted at the same time. I was born and raised in the Chicagoland area, in a suburb of Chicago, and I love chocolate ice cream. I always tell people that I really do, y'all. Chocolate ice cream is my favorite. Pertaining to my career and my career plan, I honestly thought I was going to be a personal stylist. I was going to own my own boutique, y'all, and grace the biggest red carpet events that New York City had to offer. Okay. The biggest events New York City had to offer, but that did not happen. Okay. Unfortunately, that did not happen. There was a different plan for my life. And so instead I became a self-sabotager turned self-improvement specialist. And that's what this episode is about, episode number 1. So I just want to talk to you a little bit about how I became a self-sabotager. So in this bite-sized episode, I'm going to give you the rundown on how all that happened. I'm going to talk to you about it. But first, I want you to know that self-sabotage doesn't just drop out of the air and fall on you. It just doesn't come out the air and say, boom, you wake up one day and you're a self-sabotager. It's not something that just out of the blue occurs. It's a mindset that's formed and developed over time. Okay. So self-sabotage, that mindset, that thought process, that way of life, that viewpoint has to develop over a period of time. And so for me specifically, those mindsets, those thought processes, and even those behaviors personally formed for me through what I experienced in my life. And it's probably the same for you. I'm about 99.9% sure that what you experienced in life resulted in self-sabotaging behavior. And so in my life personally, I experienced a lot of trauma. Okay. A lot of people have experienced trauma. Some people have experienced trauma and they're not aware that they've experienced trauma. Some people have experienced trauma and they haven't gotten any help for it. Some people have experienced trauma and they try to go through life without, confronting those things or really healing from it. And then some people experience trauma, they're aware of it and they get the help they need. So, it just depends. And trauma can happen in numerous ways. This is not a one-fit-all type of, occurrence in someone's life. But for me, it happened through molestation, abuse, bullying in school as a child. I experienced abandonment and rejection from family members and peers. And so what I experienced throughout my childhood, throughout my teenage years, really resulted in a lot for me as an adult. Okay. So the things that I went through in life, and not to get too heavy or too deep, but to just kind of give you a little bit of backdrop about, who I am and my story specifically, all those things that I went through that I just listed resulted in social anxiety. That was one of the effects for me. I strongly struggled with social anxiety. And at first I did not know that it was social anxiety. Now I know that social anxiety is more so of a nervous system response. But even before knowing all of that, I didn't know what it was. I didn't know that I was struggling in that area. I just thought that I was extremely introverted and I didn't know how to speak up for myself and different things of that nature. I did realize that in social environments, there was this high level anxiety that came over me, especially if that had to do with anything where I was the focal point or the lights were on me, lights, camera, action, or if I had to use my voice in any capacity. See, I grew up being in sports. I also grew up as a dancer. So I was in performing arts. And I never had a issue necessarily with doing those things because it didn't require me to necessarily do them alone. And then secondarily, it didn't require me to use my voice. Okay. So I ran track, and usually on the track field, you have a team. Even if you are competing by yourself in like a 100-meter dash or something of that nature, you still have a team. You have a team that's with you. I competed on the relay team as well. So a lot of times what I was doing, I performed best amongst other people where I was not necessarily in the forefront or the person where the lights were on. I was on POMs also in high school. And that also required a team effort throughout my life as a child. I started dancing about 3 or 4 years old, and I danced all the way through my teenage years. And again, you do that amongst other dancers. You may have a solo here and there, but there's not a lot of spotlight on you. And you also don't have to use your voice. And so I realized that those environments didn't put as much pressure on me as social environments when I actually had to interact and I had to be social. The lights were on me, different things of that nature. And so social anxiety was a huge thing for me. And then also that resulted in low self-esteem, low self-worth. Perfectionism was a huge one for me. Didn't even realize that it was such a thing that I was dealing with, but I realized that I didn't want people to know that I'd struggle with social anxiety. And so because of that, I would put on this facade or this mask as if everything was okay. I didn't have any issues. I was fine. And I didn't want to be vulnerable and transparent or people to see my flaws. And so a lot of that resulted in me acting as if I was someone that I was not. I was acting as if all things were okay when behind the scenes I was falling apart. I was dealing with social anxiety. I was dealing with low self-esteem and a lot of self-worth issues. And so also when I had goals, because there was something within me that really pushed me to the forefront where I knew that God was calling me out to be more than a person that was behind the scenes. Let me tell you, I hated it. I hated it, okay, with everything in me. And then also to put a note there, I am a big person of faith. So if you follow me, you know that. If you don't know that, I am a big person of faith, but all are welcome here, no matter what your faith belief is. I am not a person that's going to judge you, whether you have the same beliefs as me or not. I want to be able to be here to inspire and motivate you either way. Back to the story. I hated the fact that I knew that God was calling me and really putting pressure on me to come from behind the scenes and into the forefront. And I knew it was a hard thing for me as well, because I had so much anxiety when I had to be in the forefront that everything within me just fought against that call on my life. But I knew at the same time that this was something God was not letting up on. So I had to deal with the perfectionism. I had to deal with the social anxiety. I had to deal with the confidence issues, and I had to deal with the self-sabotaging behavior, because perfectionism is a self-sabotaging behavior. It's a mindset. It's a thought process. It's a view of life that's self-sabotaging, as well as social anxiety can also be that as well. Even though there's some nervous system responses and different things of that nature that may be going on when it comes to social anxiety, it's ultimately causing you to self-sabotage yourself, because you may have a bigger calling on your life, you may have a bigger purpose, and those things are working against your ability to become who you should become and who you should be ultimately. And so I had to deal with those things, y'all. And it was not easy for me to do so, because everything within me was fighting against me. Okay. How I viewed myself was fighting against me. Social anxiety was fighting against me. The confidence issues I had was fighting against me. Perfectionism was fighting against me. And so those thought processes, those mindsets, that behavior, for me, it looked like strongly and severely underestimating my capabilities. People would give me accolades and they would just affirm me and say this and this and that about me, but I would always underestimate my ability and my own viewpoint. People could say good things about me all the time. You know, people can say good things about you all the time. But what matters is how you view yourself. Other people can view you in a certain way, but if you don't believe it, then it doesn't matter. Okay. And so that's one of the things that I struggle with, and a result of some of that behavior. Second, I would always count myself out of opportunities as well. I would say that I'm not ready for this, or I'm not skilled enough for this, or I'm not prepared for this, or I'm not, whatever that is. I would always count myself out of opportunities as if I was not skilled enough. I was not, good enough for the opportunity. And then I will also put a cap on my skill set. Always, like, this is as far as I can go. This is all I know. Taking a risk into the unknown also triggered a lot of anxiety for me. And so I did not want to go beyond what I knew I was able to flourish in, or I was able to actually do good in it, or sense, or what I was comfortable with. And so that really caused me to put a cap on my skill set. And then I strongly suppressed my feelings as well, which is a whole nother episode. I can't even dive into that in this episode, but suppression of my feelings and how I actually felt was a big thing for me. And then I did not speak up for myself. I was also involved in a lot of unhealthy relationships, whether that was with peers or that was romantic relationships when I was in like high school and in my early adulthood, different things of that nature. I just exhibited very self-defeating behavior for many, many years. And it just caused a lot of crazy stuff to happen for me. It got really ugly, really messy, really, really fast. And so I struggled with depression really bad at one point. I remember just every single day I would cry, like every single day. I just remember having mascara on, and I would just come in the house and mascara would be just all down my face because I was just struggling so bad, just crying every single day because I was just in such a dark place. I wasn't happy. I was dealing with a lot of things internally. There was just a lot of fears within me. And I just didn't know that all the trauma that I had went through in my life was just really hitting me at one time. And it just kind of overcame me at once. I couldn't continue to suppress what had happened in my life. I couldn't continue to overlook it. And I couldn't continue to overlook the fact that my behavior was so self-sabotaging. And so it became a big thing for me. And I remember at one point in my life, there was a crossroad. I literally came to a crossroad in my life where God literally gave me the option to continue down the road of self-destruction or to go about the roundabout and turn in a new direction. And that was a hard thing for me, but I really felt like I was at a crossroad. Like you can turn left, you can turn right, or you can keep going down this same path, but this is a path of destruction. It's not going to get any better from here. You have to really make a decision that you want better for your life. You have to make a decision that you know that there is better out there. You have to make a decision to confront those inward things that you've been struggling with: social anxiety, perfectionism, self-sabotage, trauma. You have to look yourself in the mirror and realize that this is a you versus you battle. This is not like a you versus everybody else, because no matter what had happened in my life as a child or a teenager, I couldn't keep blaming other people, or I couldn't keep being in a place of pouting and being upset about it and rehearsing it in my mind. I had to decide that you have the option to make a turn in a new direction. And so God gave me that opportunity. He said, listen, you can either go down this same path or you can make a roundabout. And so, I chose to take the roundabout. I chose that I did not want to continue down this path of self-destruction, but I wanted better for my life. So in the next episode, I'm going to tell you a little bit about that crossroad moment. Woo! And what a time it was in my life. I'm going to give you the real and the raw on that as well. So we all have these crossroad moments. We all experience them, but what's important is how you respond to them. Okay. That's the most important thing. How do I respond to the moment where I have an opportunity to turn in a new direction for the better, to better my life, and to go down this new path that no longer holds me back from my purpose? So that's what I want to talk to you about in the next episode. It's been great chatting with you for this first episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that you learned a little bit about me in this part 1 of this 3-part series. And I'm just so excited to continue the conversation with you. It's my first episode, y'all. So thanks for rocking and rolling with me. This is the first episode 1, okay? 1 episode down. So many more to go. I will talk to you very soon. This has been the Raven Nole Show. Thanks for listening. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to this podcast so you're the first to know when new episodes are released. And don't forget to leave a review. If you can't wait until the next show, follow along on Instagram, YouTube, or Twitter at Raven Nole for more tips and to keep the conversation going. Go ahead and DM me on Instagram or take a screenshot of this podcast and share it to your IG stories. I want to know about your takeaways from the show. Don't forget to tag me and use the hashtag RCNPodSquad. Lastly, visit my website at ravencnole.com and join my email list to get exclusive bonuses only for my email subscribers. Thanks again for rocking and rolling with me. I'll talk to you soon.